Welcome to Very Honored Frater BT's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 59, in which Joe Shantz and I interview Amandeep Sodhi. But first, Transformations and Footnotes. This is the segment in which I recite, verse by verse, the book which my father John Dan Reeb wrote in 1976, Transformations, followed by the footnotes in which I talk about what I just read. All the while listening to Jean-Michel Jarre's Oxygen. Transformations. Chapter 1, verse 18. You and I both know, for instance, that it is possible for two flesh-place fear junkies, or even two megagroups of flesh-place fear junkies, to be in total disagreement, each calling the other wrong, and for them both to be right about the other and right about themselves. This makes the game interesting, or at the very least, it makes it risky. Verse 19. It's very simple for flesh-place fear junkies to get stuck on darkness and hypnotize themselves into believing that it is light. What is not so obvious to flesh-place fear junkies is something else that is obvious to both you and me. It is equally possible for flesh-place fear junkies to get stuck on lights, to become enraged with others who are stuck on other lights they label different or darkness, and to make great darkness out of all the light. Flesh-place fear junkies are very powerful in places of flesh. They make traffic jams, getting stuck on lights, and create power failures they label grisly and or glamorous. They call these latter ones wars. This is another possibility created by the three tie pins. And now for the footnotes. I think the key point is that the mega groups are of flesh-place fear junkies, so people who already take for granted that they're in a state of fear because they're addicted to it are going to want to have in-groups and out-groups and call the other wrong and probably point out the flaws in the other and how they consider themselves better as opposed to the other for thus and thus reasons, which they might be right about, but at the same time, on the other side, they're saying things like, well, yeah, but you guys are like this, and we're like this and that, and both are right about the other. Implants a sense of risk. Stuck on darkness, hypnotize himself into believing that it is light. Of course, my mind goes right to Hitler and a bunch of people thinking that he was some good thing for everybody. Rome was thought of as the light. They were bringing light into a world of barbarians. I don't quite think they were. On a certain level, a certain kind of light. More like a Pandora's box bearer, to mix metaphors. At least I'm staying in the same pantheon. Stuck on lights. Well, here's something that works. Your thing that works is different from my thing that works, therefore it's darkness. Yeah, you run into that wherever you have someone ignorant enough to think that you're forsaking Jesus Christ if you're adhering to the teachings of Buddha. Flesh-place fear junkies very powerful in places of flesh. Yeah, they organize amongst themselves, the people who really intensely hold these assumptions as solid, and really claw their way into these positions. It's kind of gross. They make traffic jams getting stuck on lights, referencing back to irony, confusion, and paradox, also known as form, distance, and time. Our guest tonight is a musician and wizard from Jalandhar, India. But first, let's bring in our co-host Joe Shantz.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. So, if my voice is a little scratchy and Courtney Lovish, it's I've been basically chanting since like Saturday. It's been like at least once every day. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy, but
Nice.
yeah. I mean, it's been cool. But the last one, so Easter is celebrated. We started at 11 o'clock tonight, so that's good.
Oh, this is Easter. Oh,
Yeah.
in sync with Passover. What a concept.
Exactly. Yeah. No. I mean, they have. I think that the calendars align in that way. It's sort of like, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because as anti-Semitic as they were, like the Constantinian Church, like asked the Jews, they were like, let's sync this up. It makes sense, right? And then the Romans were like, well, no, we've already kind of got this calendar really like the way it is, and we like it. So.
Dude, I got to tell you something hysterical. So, my godfather, who is clearly like one of my tribe, because he dresses like he's from Victorian times. So he like wears the pocket watch, and he's got his hair slicked back, and his wife looks very Victorian. I love my godfather,
mm-hmm.
And I always used to always make fun of him because in the Greek church, the once someone becomes confirmed, they or gets baptized and anointed, the godfather accepts that person's sins for like 5 years. And I'm like, ha ha ha, I'm partying, and it's all your fault. But he was a Yale divinity guy, but he was also like really cool, and like he would accept my weirdness because I did like a whole year like of study before joining. And I remember we'd have these classes like during Orthros, and this is in San Francisco, and he would, so I would just say really controversial things that he would get, but like everyone else is just sort of like aghast by. They're like, who the hell are you? But I'm like, there was this one like Greek guy who just was only there to like get his wife confirmed. He just wanted to like just check off the boxes, get married, and then good to go.
Right.
And I was like, well, at one point I'm like, well, we all are kind of Jews, really. And he, like, this Greek guy was just like, what the, like, he just, and my, the guy, like, my godfather who, like, was running the classes, he's like, yeah, you're right. I totally get that. And I get what you're saying. And this guy was just like, he lost his shit.
Couldn't deal with that.
And he, like, left the class. I was like, ding, point for me.
Aww. We are Noahide Gentiles, god damn it.
He's like, I hate the Jews. It's like, okay, well,
he's still on that old script. Oh,
right. Well, it's funny because it's like, well, dude, like all these ceremonies, like, do you know where they like all these ceremonies? Like, they're Jewish. Like,
yeah. We're in the tabernacle, for fuck's sake. That's the Holy of Holies where the priest stands, and back here is the...
But I thought it was endlessly hysterical. Like, I would have so much fun.
Yeah. Oh.
It's kind of, but it's so offensive. It's sort of, I hate that sort of like, my religion's better than yours, and I guess I experienced that a little bit today, and I think that there were some people that, when you're constantly doing stuff sort of day after day and week after, like when you're going for a whole week and doing this like mega session of religious services, like people start to wear down a bit and they get a bit silly and their guard drops a bit. Yeah. And I have noticed quite a bit of anti-Semitism for people who I was kind of shocked to hear that by. And it's like, you know what? Come on, that's just gross. Like, stop being gross. Just be like.
Then again, I mean, I used to sing the lyrics, of those songs in English, and some of it's in the lyrics. Like, some of it's actually in the script.
No, you're absolutely right. It really is. It's really there. And, I've heard what apologists will say is that, no, what's really going on in the story is that it's juxtaposing, the person who's really arrogant and they're doing things for the wrong reason versus the harlot, right, who is actually like, theoretically you would say, oh, well, the good Jew, you should really sort of like, in theory you would exalt him, but like look at Judas and isn't he awful? And this is like the rest of Jews versus the harlot, which you would say, oh, well, stone the harlot. But in fact, the harlot was the one that's redeemed. so the apologists say that, but if the ultimate result is that you get people who are just like, oh my God, the Jews suck, blah 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 blah, you're like, really? Like, you
They
kind of have to
missed
take
it.
well, you kind of have to take responsibility for it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that juxtaposition, but maybe you
Well,
should
it's like they're
choose a
saying,
better
well,
metaphor.
when in our narrative, when we say Jews, we mean, selfish, greedy people we don't want to be like. And it's like, well, yeah, but there's actually a group of people over here that calls themselves Jews, and they find that offensive when you use that. It's like, I mean, to be fair, like there was one point where I was talking to someone in the Golden Dawn community. I don't know if he wants me to just drop his name right now, but he was saying that he's attended. Uh, I don't know. I'm ignorant about the pre-Jewish origins of Lilith, but he was saying that he had worshipped Lilith in a Sumerian context, or I don't know what it
Okay,
was, Canaanite, the
okay,
Lilu, little or whatever,
okay.
and so from that point of view, he finds it offensive that the Golden Dawn calls her the evil woman and puts her on the Klippoth tree at Malkut. And I was like, okay, yeah, I mean that's fair. That is where it is, and there has been changes in and a fourth and fifth and sixth definition of Lilith in the Oxford Dictionary added since Victorian times, thanks to musicians and creative re-envisionists and people digging back maybe earlier in history. Again,
Well,
I'm
but I
ignorant
think,
about it, but I mean, there's kind of a parallel there.
yeah, there totally is. That's interesting you bring it up because I thought one of the most inspired works that are out there, and my fellow previous Golden Dawn Order people would be like, okay, this is clear evidence that he's fallen. So if I'm the fallen guy, fair enough. But like, so we're so I think I could say this because I think it's public. If it's not, I know I'm gonna get sued. But Joe Max's wife actually published a beautiful but like very potent and kind of scary evocation of Lilith, and it's it's not for the faint-hearted. And if you do that particular work that's somewhere on the internet, and maybe we can make a link to it or something,
Hmm.
you should probably wear protection because like have it on before things start
But
because
she's intentionally
it's
worshiping
crazy.
an evil Lilith, right? Or
It's not
invoking,
it's
not
not a
worship.
worship. No, no, no. It's the fundamental basic purpose of that particular ritual is to find the power word. It's to find a power word.
Hmm.
That's what's ultimately expressed, but through the process, it gets a little wild in the temple, and I'll just say that much.
Hmm.
Um, but in possibly a really
So
fun
kind of
way.
drawing from Talmudic sources, like sort of the
But
rabbis
no, no,
telling,
I guess
expounding upon stories of how awful Lilith is, like as opposed to going
yeah.
deeper and back prior to the demonization by the.
But here's the thing: from the perspective of a Victorian, anything sexy is very bad, and
Yeah,
from the perspective of a Talmudic rabbi, anything sexy is bad. So
yeah,
it sort of depends on your frame of reference. So, if you're kind of like okay with the sexiness, then there are aspects that are not going to be like evil and bad.
right.
I've not done like I've read through the work that was done, and I think it's brilliant. But I also like I I have not done it. But like when you read through it, you're kind of like, oh, that's where that's going. All right, like here's what you should probably think about before getting started. Uh,
Hmm.
but it looks like a fun thing. It's just that's why it's going to be really things that are evil or good really depend on your framework. I really believe there
Yeah,
are things that I think most people can all kind of agree that are evil. I mean, no one really wants to live in a society where you know you go down to the street to buy some bread and someone's going to like knife you. Like you don't. I don't think anyone wants that to happen.
yeah.
There are major contexts of like what good and evil is, and we can kind of all agree, or at least socially bad or good. Um, but this is one where I can kind of understand where someone would be like, Lilith, gets a little bit of a bad rap.
Yeah. Interesting. So we've gone over anti-Semitism and drawn a parallel with the demonization of the ancient goddess Lilith, and that'll make a few people go, hmm. Meanwhile, let's go to the other side of the world.
If you want me to be excommunicated, just send a letter to the patriarchate and just with a copy of this. So.
Well, let's see. It looks like our friend in India, Amandeep Sodhi, he's confirmed that he's ready to teleport or to be beamed by. Is Scotty? Is he around, or is it one of the
changed out? Yeah, we changed out the evocational method of teleportation. So we now have the robot Scotty who's ready to go.
Okay, so we'll send the program on down.
Come on.
And let's get to that interview, shall we? Greetings, welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast. This is my co-host Joe Shantz.
Hi, we chatted a little bit beforehand. It was great.
Hello, Joe.
Thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you very much for calling me.
Absolutely. So I was intrigued. I saw you commenting on a thread, and I saw you very articulately kind of rebut what was being said by someone from a Thelemic background, and then you identified that you came from a Sikh background, but you were familiar with chaos magic and East and West, and you had read Crowley, but you didn't consider him a prophet. And I was like, okay, we got to get this guy on the Esoterinerd podcast. Who is this guy? And so that's where I'm coming from. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about how you got started, how growing up, in a Sikh community led, to wizardry and led to these other practices.
Well, in India, you can see, even if you are a Sikh or you believe in any other religion, the main influence is always our basic Indian spirituality. And basic Indian spirituality is always close to chanting and meditation. Even chanting or even the way they pray, it's almost like meditation itself.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can say, in an umbrella term, if you go into depth, then even the theories of Jesus, it's a kind of meditation,
Yeah.
His ways are different, but it's a beautiful theory, and it works. Love always works, and love is meditation. And if you are in love with yourself, your real spirit, then that causes the actual meditation, and that causes a phenomenon called samadhi in India. What we call it?
There's this beautiful book that I read a long time ago called The Cult of Tara. And I think we talked about this in our sort of chatting and stuff earlier. And I'm really curious, like the one thing I loved about that particular book is it really kind of like talks about the technology of meditation, and that it tried to, from a very academic perspective, reduce the practice of what the Tibetan Buddhists were doing into sort of like, okay, look, if you do these mantras like literally 100,000 times, which, when you start doing mantras and you think about day after day, like, 100,000 really isn't that much. It really, over the course of a year, you can probably get there. Yeah. Like, what do you? I'm really curious, because you're so versed in so many different traditions. Do you sort of think, like, if you do that kind of work where it's like, over and over in repetition, no matter what it is, that you get to that meditative place that you're talking about?
I do believe that. And I believe, though I have said that Aleister Crowley and people like them, they may or may not be prophets. I'm sure about that he would not be a prophet. But if you talk about Jesus, he was a prophet. If you talk about Greek Hermes, I've heard about him as well, and his theories, his occult work, that he is also a high level prophet. He is an ascended master. And if you talk about some other ascended masters from different, you talk about Merlin. There is a state where Merlin gets submerged with the universe. He becomes one with the universe, uh, which these Thelemites call man of earth, I believe. The last stage where you are one with the universe, and this stage is a stage where the client computer becomes the server, you know,
Hmm.
where you are.
Very interesting
I
analogy.
love that.
The client computer becomes the server, like the drop of water becomes the ocean.
Yes, exactly. And the higher knowledge comes into you, and you are no longer inside your body. Yes, of course, the body is not going to stop its work. Body is still going to feel sex. Body is still going to feel pain, but it's up to you that you want to come into the body or you want to listen to the body or not. This stage can come, but I do not think that it would come so easily. According to
Right.
my meditational experience, I feel that there is a one term which in witchcraft they say will of the universe. You you try very hard to connect, but there are very few chosen ones like Hermes, or very few chosen ones like Jesus or like Merlin. Rest all people can become wizards, great magicians, and maybe very enlightened beings as well. But these people, these chosen ones, if the will of universe is with them after meditation of a long time, then they themselves become universe. Universe selects them, their body. I do not know what kind of chemistry happens with
Hmm.
them inside their body after meditation, but it's kind of some kind of divine love. It's in our religion. It's called that. We call it God, or we call it Satnam. Satnam means the real name, the
Hmm.
real vibration, which is happening without any interference, continuously from eternity. You know,
I've
if
done
that
that as a
vibrate,
breathing exercise, the
yeah,
inhaling sut and exhaling nam.
exactly, exactly. So
So I was just going to
they
say,
say,
ask, is the secret?
yeah.
So do you identify as being someone of the Sikh religion, or because I'm trying to understand, do you kind of believe that there's always an avatar of that universal energy available to us, or is that not necessarily like that? Is that physical presence not necessarily with us always? That it's something that's just chosen at different intervals depending on what the universal consciousness requires.
Well, there can be different theories, but I feel, universe's language cannot be decoded by any Bhagavad Gita or any book of Moses or any, uh, you know, any Goisha book. These books are very knowledgeable, but I personally believe if you talk about universe, then one book or all the books collectively, even they cannot explain the language of universe, and universe can manifest itself in many ways. I personally feel there can be people who are like Hermes till now in this world, or they may not be. There can be some other ways if they are not in human form. There may be some other ways, I believe. And if human life form is creating a lot of troubles, then they may quarantine our planet as well. Maybe that time is also going to come sometime if human species or any other species create a lot of problems to their own world, then such powers may quarantine this world as well. But
Interesting.
this is all in form of energy, I feel.
I think that the truth that I feel in the concept of like an energetic quarantine is that like there's a lot of really gross. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like World War I, where you just have people walking into a hail of bullets. There's things that are of this world that really gotta stay here, or just some junk that like doesn't need to go into the subtler realms of the truer nature of the soul. It's part of kind of the outer crust, the outer rough skin of God, if you will. And
I
when we
believe so.
incarnate here, then we experience it sometimes, unfortunately, and we do our best not to, and maybe bring some better manifestations here. But
Yeah.
I think, but it also points to the fact that we might not be quarantined, that we might actually create something so beautiful in this world that it would be embraced energetically by the higher realms. So there's kind of like a
Yeah.
hope in that.
This can also be possible. See,
Yeah.
I personally feel that if you're talking about, you were saying that, do I believe that there are certain people who still come into this world as prophets or as wizards or as musicians or chosen ones? In our Sikh history, if you read, there are 10 gurus, 10 masters, and their disciples were also kind of enlightened. I don't know what they taught them. They were extremely brave people. But if you are brave, you can fight with someone. If somebody is trying to, create problems in your country, or trying to create imperial colonies in your country, or trying to enslave the people, then you are fight for the people to create a righteous rule in your
Right.
country. But regarding martyrism, how painfully a person can possibly die. This creates shivers in my body when I read the stories of these masters. That there was one master, they were Mughal rulers. Akbar was the ruler, and Aurangzeb was a Mughal ruler who came to India, and there was a lot of torture and different stuff going on in our country. One of our masters said that if you are going to convert these people, then you have to convert their master. If you are able to convert their master, then all these people are also going to convert,
Right.
because he accepted it, because they all were torturing him. There was no other way,
Yeah.
Either ways, either there was a possibility that he could attack them, or he could give them some other kind of challenge, or show them some other kind of miraculous power. But he never used any kind of miraculous power in front of them. But the kind of stuff it did, it creates shivers in my body, that Mughals put him into boiling oil, and he was reciting something at that point of time. The master was reciting something, and that thing is also written in our holy book, in Guru Granth Sahib. And at the same time, one person was putting hot sand on his head, and somebody was cutting his fingers as well at the same time. Such kind of torture was being done on the person, on the master. And at the same time, if some person is reciting something, or I don't know if he's remembering God or some supreme force, then I am bound to believe that this thing was something highly potent. It's
Hmm.
not a dead God. It's some kind of universal energy which is actually interacting with them. If it is actually interacting with them, it is actually working, because it is all documented, and it is also not like mythology. Their dates and their time of death and everything is given. It's all documented. And I'm a musician, so one of my masters who taught me music is from the family who was with my our Sikh gurus. So the stories, and there are a lot of things that they tell us regarding the same, that these powers were there. So if these powers are there with the Sikh gurus, then you think about Jesus, then you think about Hermes, and then you think about Merlin. They must have been very ancient and very, very powerful beings. No, then
Yeah.
I'm bound to believe that these people must be very powerful. Yeah,
But
and
do you
at the
kind of
same
think
time,
I love your point, but I love your point about mythology. I mean, don't you think that there's that universal energy that really just wants to interact with humanity in whatever guise it's in, and so like you think about Greek mythology, and you think, well, there must have been a Zeus like archetype because that universal energy
exactly,
really wanted to interact.
exactly. I believe that, and all these the triads and archetypes of God of Saturn, God of Mars, and God of Venus, if translated in Indian mythology, if you do not look at their outer figure and their outer outlook, the way they draw their picture, only that is different. Their triads and their powers, the power of Mars in Greek is exactly same as the power of Mars in India. They do the same work, and this is amazing.
I love that. That's so fascinating. Now, I got to tell you, like some of the, I think you're Sikh, so I hope I don't offend you on, at least with my limited, very limited understanding of the Hindu gods. But there are some gods where their stories are so complex, and you look at like
Yeah,
the stories of like the Greek gods, the Roman gods, and stuff, and you're kind of like they're relatively straightforward. I mean, that there are myths about them that are really complex, but I've not found any human civilization where the gods and their interactions are so complex as in
yes,
the
exactly.
Indian gods. Like, what do you think about that? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Well, the perspective that I'm going to tell now is not at all my perspective. It's perspective of one of the person I was very curious to meet. His name was Kinjal, and he is a person who is deeply into Indian Tantra. And I was very curious about certain questions that why Shiva is like this, why God Vishnu is like this, and why Brahma is like this, why their stories are like this. So I wanted to ask him questions that I first of all told him that I do not believe. I believe in Shiva, I believe in Vishnu and Brahma, but I feel that either they were humans with certain supernatural abilities, or either they were kings and important people of their time. But how would I believe that they are the creators of universe? How would I believe that a person with some kind of god weapon is going to destroy everything and somebody is going to create something? Then his answer was that I would not be able to understand their powers and their abilities, what they are actually, till the time I meditate. So once I started meditating, according to him, I was meditating earlier as well, but I was feeling the energy part. I was very much convinced that how energy works, and what kind of effect and manipulation you can do with that energy, and how it clears all the negative forces inside you and you become enlightened person. I was very much open with that, and I was very much familiar with that, but I was not familiar with this thing. Even though I'm into Hindu community or Sikh community, he told me that these are not actually, you cannot say that these are higher beings. You can say maybe they were avatars of some energy, but in a human form with some kind of demigod abilities. But if you see their abilities and the kind of stories that revolve around them, it's kind of level of meditation that they are into. That's not something which is happening outside. That is something which is happening inside. For example, there was a story in which monsters, the demons and the angels are doing some kind of churning into the ocean. There's a story in which the demons and angels were enemies of each other, and the higher gods, means Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, they conducted a meeting, and they said that these brothers, angels and demons, these were the brothers, they are fighting with each other. Why uh, can't they settle down? So they created a meeting, and in that meeting they discussed that we are going to create a competition in which there would be a big mountain, and around that there would be a long snake that one end demons would hold, the other hand angels would hold, and they will do the churning of ocean. You know, they will
Yeah.
do the churning of ocean, and you see the same churning is happening inside us. It's not a story which is related to the gods, I believe. And that person, the tantric, the person who told me, he was a master. He told me that this may or may not be a story, but there is a lot of deep meaning in that. He said that this is something which is happening inside us. There are demons and there are angels, and there is a lot of churning happening
But
inside
you can
us.
trick them into working together if you make a
Exactly.
competition for them. Like, I mean, that's sort of the answer to the question, like, why are there football teams? You know,
Exactly.
it's because
Exactly.
everybody wants to go out and fight, you know, but it's destructive and people mourn and it's horrible when people go out and fight. So give them uniforms and let them beat each other up on the
Exactly.
field. And it's like they get concussions. Well, yeah, but it's better than war.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of, if you see
I
deeply,
love that.
this is a middle pillar of Kabbalistic studies. This
Hmm.
is a middle pillar of Kabbalistic studies. It's neither right hand, neither left hand. It's like a balance, like Solvay and Coguli, the kind of picture they draw regarding this Baphomet figure. This is also not satanic, I believe. This is also kind of
Oh, no.
balance of nature.
It makes me think of the old, not the lust card with the Whore of Babylon writing on the beast, but the older um, Leo card in the tarot, Strength, where you have the woman representing Hesed, uh, taming the lion, and then so the lion, once the lion is tame, is the red lion, but in the background there's a young green lion running around who's still wild and untamed.
Exactly. And I believe there must be some kind of inner, something related to inner powers, which is completely, in conjunction with this picture, which matches with
Yeah,
this picture. I
yeah,
believe
that makes
this
me
is
think
all
of.
happening inside us.
Yeah, I mean, it also sounds like you said, like the gods were in that particular role. Maybe they were incarnated as some kind of conspiracy, some kind of admin, some kind of either a group of people who were in the know, who were coming from a higher place, or they were thinking more about the what's good for everybody, as opposed to the angels and the demons who were just into their whatever their issue was with each other. But to
Yeah.
get them to do something constructive for everybody, I mean, assuming that churning the ocean is constructive for everybody, but I mean, it's like it makes me think of the energy in my own body, the energy in my own aura, getting the, oh, okay, you want that, right, and you want that, well, let's figure out as the transcendent, maybe the neocortex, the
Exactly.
the human higher part of the brain, but maybe even what a lot of people think of in the second person as God or as their guardian angel is that
Yeah.
higher functioning part of the brain, to say, how can we organize this in the best possible way? And like, but then there'll be some sneaky demon that's comes around back and says, yeah, in a way that makes me famous, or no, 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 no,
Yeah.
you go down here, you're
Exactly.
part of the game, you're gonna be the director, like, and then
Yeah.
some other one will come along, oh no, because we've got to be the most humble person in the world. No, 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 little angel, you go back into the stadium and have your little game.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
interesting. It's a great story.
Everybody has got their own work, and in this churning, it was said that demons and the angels both were getting lots of gifts. After the churning, lot of divine stones, lot of lights, and lot of powerful weapons, and lot of powerful elixir came out of the ocean. Well, while the churning is being done inside in meditation, there are a lot of gifts that we also get in the same way.
I
This
love
is
that.
this is what convinces me that uh, many of the things can be in the real world, which are written in the books, but many of the things, half of the things, are kind of symbolic language, which is telling something which is happening inside us. So that is very
You,
interesting part of spirituality.
and I think that all those things that we think that we get that are totally spiritual, like they totally always manifest in a physical way. Like I remember I used to be so self-conscious and so like fearful about so many things. Like I remember having this conversation with this guy who was like, "Yeah, you're getting fat," and I'm like, "Really? You're gonna say that?" Like, so his wife was right there, like Martha, your husband just called me a fat ass. Like, really? Like, where I would never have done that before, where I would never have made that a joke. It would never have been funny to me. Um, and now it's really just it's hysterical and it's funny and I can laugh along with it. Before I think it would be like really hurt and like run back and like, oh my god, someone thought I was fat. Like I just don't even give a crap anymore.
Yeah.
So, Edward,
Oh yeah.
I would want to ask you what path you were in. I saw you doing some yoga as well, and
Yeah.
little bit of Thelema as well. You do?
No. My particular journey is when I was 4 or 5 years old. I started on the path of yoga with my father in the form of meditating and chanting a syllable for each of the 7 primary chakras in the
Okay.
morning and burning incense and all that sort of thing. So I always thought of myself as being on that path, but he also taught me tarot and taught me the tree of life. So he had kind of an interesting and eclectic background. So he passed away on me when I was 15. And since
Okay.
people who are longtime listeners of the podcast already know the story, I'll make it the extra short version. So my dad had said stay away from Crowley, but he always liked the Golden Dawn. So my mom and I found a Golden Dawn group, traditional Golden Dawn, and we joined it. I was 16. 2 years later, my mom died, and I was 18. And then I started running a sanctuary for said Golden Dawn order, and did that for 18 some odd years. And then finally, the whole thing kind of, well, it didn't end well, like it does with some orders. Some groups
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was a
end in a
hot
fiery
mess.
car crash.
Hot
Kind of.
mess.
But I mean, we all learned a lot, and that's how Joe and I know each other, and so we have some kind of like old World War buddies, kind of like we've
Okay.
seen some stuff that no one in the world would understand, together, and so here we are, and so with all of that in the past now, like because it was all basically an effort to learn what my dad might have taught me had he not died. I've decided, okay, that's enough Western now. I think
Okay.
18 years of Golden Dawn is enough. I'm gonna shift back into the Eastern. So I became a yoga teacher, and I was actually
Okay.
just going to mention, in context with what you were saying, that in the Sri Swami Satchidananda translation of the Yoga Sutras, I like how he was talking about how through meditation and through, of course, the whole practice, all 8 limbs, you eventually, these demons or angels or whatever they are, they're like fish in the great ocean that's around you, in the sort of oceanic consciousness sense, and then and they all eventually become, when you stop feeding them, they become stones and they fall to the ground, and then they
Yes,
just
exactly.
wiggle a little. And then once you completely have stopped feeding them for years, and you've just been meditating on your mountain, overlooking the bottom of the ocean, you get to see
Yeah.
the patterns, and then the answer to the question, who was I in my former life? Who will I be in my next life? You know all these things. How many lives have I? It's just, oh, I see the patterns there. That's why I'm
I
like
don't,
this. That's
I
why
don't,
I feel
Yeah,
this way.
exactly.
I sort of see my demons like in that sea, like, and I just sort of like I see both the angels and the demons, and I'm kind of like, even to the demons, I'm like, oh, hey, it's nice to see you. How you doing? It's been a long time since I've seen you. And they sort of like, stick out their tongue and like flip me the bird and like, do obscene gestures. But I'm like, oh, hey, it's good to see you. Like, whatever. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know if
I
that's
need
the
to be
same or
nicer to
something
my
different.
demons. Yeah. I'm always banishing my demons. I gotta be nicer. Everybody tells me.
Well, I think that they can like if it's when they're kind of when they realize that you can help them and like that you're not just saying, fuck off, like get away from me, I hate you. When you actually say, oh, you know what, like you give me this, like this is a power that you
It's
can bring to
true.
the table. It's like
Yeah.
it all becomes like really good, and you're like, you know what, yeah, you're kind of a dick, but like that's what I like about you, you
Yeah.
know?
It's like the sometimes the demon and the angel are the same being in a different mode.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It may
Hmm.
happen, and that's what is shown in the this Taoist picture of the sign called the yin yang stuff. You know, in the
Yeah.
dark there is a little bit of white, and in the white there is a little bit of dark as well. So it's all a mixture.
And I
I'm
think they all
wondering
want to
if
come with you. It's like they all want to be part of you. It's like the universe wants to be joined, and you are, from a Kabbalistic perspective anyway, you are your
Yeah,
own, like you are your universe. So like bring the universe
right.
together, like bring it all together.
Well, the crazy thing
exactly.
is, as atheistic as scientists like to pretend that they are, they don't deny that the main theory, the theory of the Big Bang, points to that we were all once in the exact same point, and we were so
Exactly.
hot that it was unbelievable, and we took up no space, you know, and that's and so yeah, of course we're all connected, and of course we all love to hug, and
Yeah.
we're all kind of
Okay, so I'm dying to ask my guest this. So
yeah, yeah.
I gotta tell you an experience I had. So I met the most, like, I mean, the most enlightened individual I've ever met in this particular lifetime.
Oh yeah.
And I went to her temple, and her temple had like every symbol of every religion of any like thing that she's been on, like whatever, like that was her temple. And she like just started chanting, and this magic, I'll say magical dust manifested before me, and she anointed us with that. Like, do you have experience with that? Is that very common in India? Because it was amazing to me. I
That
actually
was in
watched
Calcutta,
something
right?
materialize. Yeah. Like, is that common?
Well, in India, it's you can say that it's common at the outer side, but even in the India, I will feel that these masters, these ascended masters, uh, they come at your call. Universe calls them for you. If you are the right person, then they will automatically come from anywhere.
Right.
They will come from anywhere, and they will meet you. You know, this is the conspiracy of the universe. I feel in India, I've seen there are a lot of people doing rituals. There are a lot of pundits and Brahmins. There are different priests, high priests, doing a lot of rituals, and I have seen that this game of power and game of manifestation is not at all that much easy as well. I have
Hmm.
seen the people who have got the power to meditate and do the manifestation. One of my brothers is in Canada, and he got his basic teaching from a person who belongs to the sect of Nath. And the Nath are people which are related to Lord Shiva, and he got
Hmm.
the training from that people, that cult. And I have seen the power of manifestation in that person. And one other person I know, uh, I came in contact with that person through my mother, and he's a very old person. He's a tantric, he's into Indian tantra, and
Hmm.
he worships goddess Durga. I have seen just these two people, just two, three people who are actually capable of manifesting something and curing some kind of issues, some court case issues, or some kind of diseases, and any kind of broken love or something, anything they have been able to manifest something in this real world. But rest, I have seen many other people. They are doing a lot of rituals and a lot of different worships, but rarely things get manifested, that fast.
Yeah.
It's not at all that much easy as well, I believe. Even for Crowley as well, I would say that he was a genius person, but I think he got consumed by his own powers. It creates some kind of bipolar as well. If you
Hmm.
go very deep into that, if you are alone, you do not have anybody. Just imagine that you do not have anybody to talk about, and you are watching some kind of if something actually manifests in front of you, and you're doing some kind of Abramelin kind of ritual, and some extraterrestrial being comes in front of you, and then panic attack. You get panic attack, and something happens inside you. You get bipolar or whatever. Your powers consume you. There must be some kind of teacher, or there must be some kind of occult person who has got this much of knowledge, so that you can at least share something with them. If you're alone, then it's a little bit tricky, I believe. He was a genius person, and I like him a lot, but his theories and the stuff he has written, it it seems that he has seen something, which is completely different from this world. So
Yeah, I think
I
it's interesting because I think about the monks like Mount Athos, and I remember there was a guy who kind of like taught to me. It's like we had this new monk who sort of said, "Oh, well, he had all these very interesting theoretical ideas and had very like just from an intellectual perspective, like he was right on, but the guy kind of said, okay, well, that's great. What are you going to do with that? Like, how do you make that work for you? How do you make that work for others? How do you help people with that? Like, it's great to have that intellectual knowledge, but like, what do you do with that? I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about?
yeah, exactly. Doing something practically. See, if you are a good musician, then you can do something for yourself, for your success and your protection, your shielding, banishing and stuff like that, and doing rituals for yourself. But if you have got the capability to manifest something for others, that is something a bit rare thing that I have seen. That is what I'm talking about.
Right.
Like doing something for others. If I am able to manifest something for others, if something works for them, then I document them. But if I have got the power which works 100% every time I do something for others, it actually works. This thing I feel is rare. These
Yeah.
kind of people are also there. They're also there, but it takes a lot of practice, I feel, or it's a will of universe that they are blessed with something extra.
There's a book called Filiocalia. Is it Philocalia or Filiocalia? Do you happen to know, Joe?
Philokalia, I believe.
It's the whether true or embellished, it's documented stories of Eastern mystics, and by that I mean Eastern Christian, so like Greek and
Yeah, there was a Greek and
Russian.
Russians. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, having their they do actually some similar practices. Sometimes there'd be a monk with a prayer rope, saying Kyrie eleison, but they'd inhale Kyrie and exhale eleison, so that they were inhaling God and exhaling have mercy, instead of inhaling truth and exhaling identity, as in the Sut Nam. So it's like, wow, did you get that from someone from India? Like, I mean, it seems like at a certain point, Greco-Indian used to be a thing. There was there were some of the people that were left behind after Alexander came in that had families in India, and kind of introduced some statue making, so that they were making statues of Buddha all of a sudden, and meanwhile some Buddhist ideas were getting back into Greece. So I mean, it at a certain point, it's not all that surprising when East and West mirror each other.
Yeah, exactly. And if you see deeply that Western occult and Eastern mysticism. At the higher level, they meet at the same point, that there is one force which an enlightened being gets submerged into. There's only one
Yeah.
thing that we get at the end. The way is different, but you know, they call it angels, or some higher beings. We call it devs, and uh, some other terms are there over here. But even though the hierarchy can be different here or there as well, but at the same point, it goes to the same point at the higher level. It
Yeah.
goes to the same level.
but I gotta tell you, like I'm, and this is just me getting weird on everyone, so forgive me. But like me, I mean me getting weird. But like seriously, the we call things, at least in the West, angels and demons, and it's like, okay, you've got humans, you've got critters, you've got angels, and you've got demons, and it's like, come on, like this universe is so big, it's got to be bigger than that. It can't just be, okay, you're an angel, so you're going to be good and happy and sparkly and nice, and
Didn't
you're
we
a
get
demon,
that from
oh, you're going to be like
Zoroastrianism?
yucky and mean and whatever. And it's like, I sort of feel like there's like all these different things in the universe, and like they're really interesting. And I think it's kind of
Yeah.
like that Star Wars like cantina scene where you just have like all sorts of interesting critters, and some might be fun to hang out with, and some might be like,
The
you
Jim
know,
Henson.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
like,
think the tantric there's like in the Buddhist sense there's the gods, the demigods, the humans, the animals, the hungry ghosts, and those in the hells. And it's
Yes,
like,
exactly.
okay, that's about I can deal with that. Like that's a good categorization system. The tree of life works.
Yeah, it works. It's just like, the theory is different, but it's quite close to the Kundalini Shakti and seven chakras.
Yeah.
Those are different worlds that they talk about in Kether and Malkuth.
Generally my understanding, and this is again me getting weird. Well, he got weird, so I'll get weird. It seems to me that there were a lot of people from England and Germany and other places who, got really bored with sausage or whatever, and so they went on a journey. Maybe they overshot. They went on a journey to Jerusalem and got sidetracked, or ended up in India, or ended up going even further. And then they came back and they just had this sense of, oh, why isn't there anything cool in, where I come from? And so they did their best to like pull the cool out of their own culture, like find and really dig for the gems in their own culture, and then mash them all together as if it were all one system. And they eventually came up with what we ended up kind of knowing more or less as the Golden Dawn tradition, which is where Crowley came from. But then he ended up kind of in an interesting point in history where no one had blown the whistle on it yet. No one had told the whole world what was going on in this little group in London. So Crowley got to be the one to tell everyone and also stick his face on it and change everything a little as he did. So it ended up being something that looked a lot like one man's elaborate fantasy. But I mean, he
but
was
that whole
drawing from
period,
so much.
but that whole period was so
Yeah.
interesting because I think that there was so
Very
much in the balance, and I think that here's my own weird belief. I actually believe that there are alternate universes where, things happen differently after World War II, and, things are different after the nuclear bomb. But like,
interesting.
fortunately we're in this one, which is relatively benign.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, except for like our presidential candidates, but that's a whole other category.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like, but honestly, I really think that Crowley was really at this really interesting time in history where you had all this change happening, and you know just it was such a pivotal point in history. I mean, I could really believe that, where people say, well, this is a different eon. I kind of like, I could say, I get that, because
Yeah.
it's different than what, like, so like, Jesus was doing, for example. It's just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really interested to see, if is there an avatar that comes after that's really like a true avatar, and what does he or she come in the form as.
I just had a really horrifying and blasphemous thought that Jesus kind of popularized martyrdom in Palestine.
Could be. I don't think that it's blasphemous. I think that it's potentially reality. I think you look at, as humans, you kind of deal with the tactics of other people that you have, and you have your own paradigm, and you want your paradigm and your framework of how religion and the universe works to live. So you're like, okay, well, what works? And
Yeah.
you do that.
Yeah.
And
God.
it's not until the
What
next
gets
avatar
people's
comes.
attention? Yeah, but I mean, then we get to learn that eventually martyrdom gets old.
I want the next avatar to be like really super sexy, and then like get killed,
Oh,
but then
David Bowie,
somehow
he's
like,
already come and gone. Yeah.
yeah, but then like but gets blown up, but then it was like, no, my magic is better than that. Like I can still live. Like I want the
Oh, that's
martyr.
true.
I want the next avatar to like live through all that and just be like, dude, your bombs do nothing for me. You suck.
I can cure radiation. Yeah.
Well, you can see that Krishna was kind of that kind of avatar. You can identify with that kind of avatar. He
Oh
was
yeah.
Yeah. I love
glamorous
his
and
nativity scene where his mother was horrified, looking into his mouth and seeing all galaxies being created and destroyed at once.
I
That's my
love
kind of
that.
nativity scene.
Exactly.
Not so much with the lambs and stuff.
Yeah, no lamps there. Well, the lamps were
Creepy
there,
old
but like
men.
really, really super, super giant, infinitesimally tiny.
Random strangers showing up. Stars led me here. I guess that's pretty cool.
yeah.
So, how do you use? You mentioned that you use your music in conjunction with your magic.
Well, music is in India. It's called Nad Yoga. It's kind of yoga and it's kind of tantra as well. It's called Swar Tantra. That means tantra of notes.
Hmm.
The musical notes that we use. So it depends how we use it. Like there are basically three kind of tal or beats. You know, one is medium pace, the medium speed of the beat, and the medium speed of beat is in which your heart is beating. The normal healthy person's heart beat is a medium pace of tal, and the slower is vilambit leh. We call it vilambit, the slower part. That is
Hmm.
in that is for meditation and for manifesting higher magic, you know. And the medium one is for the worldly, materialistic things, to achieve materialistic things. And the faster pace is for destructive magic. For the beats which are faster can be used for destructive magic on manipulating money, and stuff like
Hmm.
that, or physical
Interesting.
desires. Also, mantras are made by the sounds. For example, uh, mantras which we use in something constructive have got comparatively softer sounds in the language, in Sanskrit, and mantras which are used for destruction, for death, and for causing some kind of harm to the other persons. They use harsh words like tam, ta, swaha. The kind of
Hmm.
stress is being given, and the softer mantras are like Om Namah Shivaya. So they are quite softer in their tone, and the mantras which are used to cause death are used like Om Hum Fat Tam Ta Swaha. These kind of words are used in these kind of mantras. So
Hmm.
it's a science of sounds, and sound is also music, you know and the notes of music are basically like do re mi fa sol la ti do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. These seven are sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chakras. It's related to 7 chakras. The 7 nodes are related to 7 chakras of our body. They clear the 7 chakras, and if you meditate on all the nodes like it is done in the Indian way, we take a deep breath and like uh, long sound, we say Om. In the same way, we say Sa. It's a long sa. Sa re ga ma pa. We say a long pa, or in the vibrato we also say like pa. So these kind of sounds clear our internal body. Vibrato basically clears all the darkness inside, and if you use that vibrato and you meditate on the vibrato, it you can feel the kundalini evoking. You can feel the vibration inside. Then
That
stop.
is so cool. I love that because in the Greek the Byzantine music tradition, there are all these things that you talk about, but no one writes about the spiritual nature of each of the different things that are evoked. And there is a vibrato thing, and it actually, like, when I think about the notation of it, where it's like kind of a diagonal and then a line that reads across. That's what you're actually describing, and I love that. That's fantastic.
Exactly, exactly. Greek music was also very advanced, and the way it was written, it was completely in detail. And Indian music was different. It was like you know, it was spread from master. It was given from master to the disciples. It was never written. So when they saw the people of South India and the people of Western civilizations writing music in detail, the same kind of detail was present in southern part of India, like it was present in Greek civilization. The northern part of India and the mid part of India was not writing music, so they started studying that southern Indian aspect and the Western music written theory, how they write volume control, vibrato, and different notes, how to take different notes and different modulations in the voice, pitching and tone. So they started writing each and everything. Now, many of the ragas and many of the written things are there, and they are conserved for the next generations. This was the work of two people. That was Bhat Kande and Vishnu Digambar, and both of people were spiritual in nature as well, and they were the great musicians as well in India. And they gave a lot
Nice.
of work which was related to musical, how music was related to our 7 chakras, and how it was related to our, the astral worlds, how we can evoke the powers. I was reading some quote from Alan Moore. It was written that in his interview, he was saying that all artistry, performing arts, music is a kind of wizardry, and you can see its power by the amount of people which go crazy, which are artists themselves. Their art consumes them. Maybe they do not know that with their music they are evoking demons, or they are evoking angels. They are what kind of energy they are evoking. Sometimes even artists does not know, and most of the times artists themselves go crazy. You know, most of the
Yeah.
artists you would see in depression. You know, Uh, this is a kind of chaotic power which is not easy to tame. So it's just practice and devotion and surrender to your art that would save you. The
Yeah.
commitment, I would say. This is also kind of wizardry. Even
Yeah.
Alan Moore was saying the same, and some other Greek philosophers, the ancient ones, were writing the same.
You might be interested, and maybe one or two people in the audience don't know. In Western esoterica, they've developed specifically used in Paul Foster Case's lineage, i.e., Builders of the Addendum, Fraternity of Hidden Light, but there's apparently a few Golden Dawn orders that also have adopted this practice. And at one time, I thought I invented it, but I didn't. It just is something that I thought I came up with. I literally painted my keyboard thinking I was having this ingenious idea, and then it turned out that they already do this. But what the idea is that you have the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and I'm just going to do the quick version, and since this is recorded, you can listen to it a few times, but I'll just lay it all out. So if you Google the image for Rose Cross Lawman, then you have like the colored rose in the middle, you have ultimately, there's only 12 colors, even though there's 22 letters. And on that same octave that you were saying that you have the 7 chakras, if you look at it a certain way, there's 12 half steps.
Yes,
so it's
exactly.
not just... So it's, there's all these little half steps. And so the colors line up with those. Now, this isn't mathematically accurate. This was before they were able to measure this. And so if they had done this now, it probably would have been the exact opposite of what it is. So I literally painted my keyboard the opposite of this. But this is the accepted way. And I eventually had to change the way that I did it to be in line with the way that everyone else in Western esoterica was doing it, which is that C is red, C sharp is red orange, D is orange, and you can extrapolate the rest based on that. So each of the letters, for example, Aleph, Mem, and Shin, Aleph is yellow, Mem is blue, and Shin is red. So you'd play a C for Shin, and you'd play, I don't know off the top of my head, but you get the idea. So the end result is when you go to their meetings and you hear the way they're singing, and sometimes it's really weird and it sounds really odd because they're saying Gabriel, and there's like weird chords, and so they'll say Yod He Vav He. That's not exactly right, but when you kind of know where they're coming from, then you can think when they do Yod, you go, oh yeah, yellow green. That's the hermit card. That's the path that connects Tiferet with Chesed. Then they say, hey, and you go, oh yeah, that's red because it's Aries, and it's the Emperor card that connects Chokmah with Tiferet. And then they say, Vav, and you say, oh yeah, that's red-orange, so it's slightly above the red pitch, and that's the Hierophant card that connects Chokmah with Chesed. And then, hey, oh, that's the second hey. So, I mean, you can literally kind of, from a certain point of view, at least the way I used to teach it, it's just something to give the monkey mind something to do, while the spirit can actually connect.
Okay, so honest to God, I'm going to have a rant now. And my rant is against Prince. And it's Prince because, you know what? I loved Prince when I was like a teenager and just like discovered music. And he was a genius and he knew all the stuff. And yet, he wouldn't allow any of his stuff on YouTube. He had all control over everything. He didn't have a will, and then he died. And it's like, you know what? That's what happened to Eleusinian music, because what happened is that the Greek Orthodox Church assumed all that stuff from like ancient Greek music, like the 8 tones, that was totally an ancient thing that did not exist before Christ. That was pre-Christian. Okay. Like all their tones, all their music was pre-Christian. And so what you don't have is you don't have the context of like, okay, you're doing this, but it means this. So like the whole vibrato thing where you're like, from an Indian perspective, you're like, vibrato is about cleansing the chakra. It's about cleansing the aura. And it's like, wow, like I would never have gotten that from anywhere else. And it's like, and no teacher today is going to be able to teach you that because they don't know it, because it's all pre-Christian. So, you know what, Prince? Like, thanks for not creating a will. Bye-bye. I'm just kidding. I love you, Prince. I love you, Prince, and I hope you like hang out with me when we're dead. But whatever.
when I'm really getting into some good ritual work, I'll find a pitch that just resonates with the whole room, and I can feel moving through me, and it just is just right on. And I'm sure that something's going on. I didn't,
But it
I
is
wasn't
going on, and this is what I
necessarily.
hate. It's like this stuff hasn't been documented. It's like
Yeah.
documented so people can use it. It's not fit. It's not right. I mean, there's something to be said for very, very, very advanced techniques to be hidden so that it doesn't get used wrong. Because I learned some healing techniques where it's like, oh wow, I could actually use this to do really bad things, and I don't want to, and I wouldn't teach anyone to do that. But come on, like these are very basic things. Just like let people know this stuff is real so that they can go further and they can expand and really go further with their practice.
It was very interesting that because I'm of course familiar with a lot of the Om Namah Shivaya, like that type of
Yeah.
mantra, and so it's interesting to hear that in the greater context of that comes from this system of magic where there's also ways that if you're saying these other harsher words or these harsher syllables with different intentions, you could be doing attack magic. It's like, oh, of course, in a way, but it's interesting that in the way that it's coming through to the West through yoga classes and studios and all kinds of things is we only get the good stuff. We only get the sugar-coated stuff.
Yes, exactly.
But in a way, like you'd be silly, like if you've gotten that evolved, if you realize that all the stuff that you're experiencing is all in your own personal universe, to attack anything or anyone is counterproductive.
To hurt yourself. It's the like cutting.
Yeah, like you're silly to be doing it. Like you don't want to do it. You like, it's like confront. You know what? Here's the thing. I had this like horrible there was this woman at work a long time ago who was just like, I perceived her in my own time. She was like being such a bitch, and it's like, what? It was so needless. I'm like she would just be such just bitchy just to be bitchy, and I'm like, what is your problem? So you know what I did? I actually was like, okay, I'm going to do the white lighter thing, and I'm going to do a modified version of what I would do before I knew magic, and I'm going to do this thing that my order did called a comfort ritual, and I just did those things every day where it was literally just like, you know what? I want you, even though you're being a bitch to me, I want you to be well, and I want you to get what you need, because I can't give it to you. And honest to God, after I did 7 of those, she was the most awesome person to me, and she was my biggest ally, and she was the wind under my wings. She really was, but not until I did that. And but I could have, if I had known more techniques, I could have been like, okay, I'm going to evoke this shit on you, and you're going to die. And that, honestly, that would not have been the lesson to learn. I'm glad that I learned the lesson that I learned, which is you know what? Just give her what she needs, and she'll help me. And that's what happened. And it was great.
Yeah.
That's nice. So anybody amongst you, have you ever tried any kind of baneful magic?
Painful?
Baneful magic.
What do you mean?
Or, the destruction magic, or, causing some kind of harm. If somebody has troubled you a lot, like, somebody has stolen your money or your girlfriend or something, then if he's not stopping constantly, even, it is written in Bible that there was Psalm from David, that's Psalm number 109, and the kind of words that are written in that Psalm, they are the kind of words you would not even expect from any saint. But it's like the last resort, that if somebody is not stopping, and he's constantly creating problems to your family, and just to save your family, as a last resort, you have to do it, So have you ever tried that kind of thing?
So I will tell you, and I will tell you that it's that period was the most shameful period of my life. But I will tell you that I thought that it was the last resort, and I did that. And the result of all that, when you when you fast forward the tape a year hence, I came back, and actually I never did that kind of stuff against a non-magical person. First of all,
Okay.
if you were non-magical, I would not do that kind of stuff against you. But to magical
Uh-huh.
people, I only did it for what I thought was my order, and
Yeah.
and those people like that I did that to, I actually came back to, and I was like, you know what? Look, you have no reason to forgive me, but here's what I did, and I did it against you, and I'm really sorry, because I wish I had never done that. And that's the reality, because when you think about the magical community, like it must be everything. It must be everything from temple set to things that you relate to things that you don't understand, to things that you're kind of like, I don't know about that. And it's got to be everything, because we're all brothers and sisters. We really are. And we have to realize that. And we have to be the ones that elevate the rest of humanity up to where we are. And
Yes.
I was, I take full responsibility for the stuff that I did, and I'm very, very sorry. But yes, I did it, and I'm very sorry for that. It's wrong, and I don't care who you are. If you're remotely magical, you're thinking about magic or whatever. You should never hurt or harm a magical brother or sister.
Yes, exactly. But I feel that daily ritual of cleansing and shielding and banishing, if your ancestors and your guardian angels are strong enough and you do that regularly, then I feel that there is no need for, if the defense is good, then there is no need of attack, I believe.
I totally agree with that, and thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Edward, anything else that you would want to share, that the best experience of yours in the meditation or in yoga or wizardry or any kind of thing, that the ritual that
Best
was your best,
experience.
in which you
Hmm.
felt the deepest of meditation?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, partly because it was such a flow reversal for me, because my dad and I kind of, when I grew up, he was talking about, oh yeah, your Christian grandma thinks this and that, and their stupid guilt thing. So I kind of always had this internal dialogue of, yeah, Christians, yeah. And so then when I was in my 20s and I embraced the Golden Dawn path, eventually it leads to some very Christian symbolism in the inner order. And
Yeah.
so in order to progress at a certain point, I had to kind of embrace that. And I ended up embracing it as more than I expected I was going to, and I decided to join the Catholic Church, in particular, a branch where the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church seemed to be coming together, i.e. the Russian Orthodox Catholic Church, on account of the actual Russian Orthodox Church being so tied into the Russian government and previously the USSR. Well, it's a long story. Anyway, so that's where I was at in my 20s. This was probably about 13 years ago. And so I would do this ceremony where we would go through each of the 14 stations of the cross as named in Latin by Saint Francis, and visualize them, and we had attributed certain divine names from our system onto those symbols, and then we would interpret them in an esoteric way, meditate on them, really delve into them deeply, personify them, imagine ourselves going through them. And I was probably the only one that took it to such an extreme that when it got to the station where they put the nails through his hands, I had a little razor or a little pin, and I'd cut my arm, my palms and the bottoms of my feet, and then my side. And then when it got to the point where he died, I'd do my best to let all the air out and completely stop as best I could, and then
Dude,
I'd
I love you
experience
because
the resurrection.
you
I did
are
that every
so
day for a long
you
time.
are so fucking hardcore. I love you.
But I honestly, that was some of my most profound experiences, I have to admit. Um, and I would listen to John Michael Talbot and sing along and dance around, and it was just all just so
Dude,
the
okay,
opposite.
stop. Listening to John Michael Talbot earned you a special place in like Christian heaven, even though like you're such an apostate. Like, and that's why I love you. We're going to if we go to hell, we're going to be in the same realm, and I'm going to fix you cocktails. I'll be your cocktail server.
I'll put some John Michael Talbot in the background so that when you listen to this later, you can hear what we're talking about.
I'll be rolling my eyes and shaking your cocktail, honey.
Also, what do you think? If we're talking about Christianity, there were different orders that were, they used to study Christianity and the tantric aspect of Christianity in deeper way, like Golden Dawn did. Like, what do you think about this Freemasons, the Freemasonry? Is it all about deeper aspects of Christianity and the technical aspects of Christianity, or is it mixture of Egyptian, Christian, and Buddhist, Eastern, and everything? What is Freemasonry actually?
Right. I think that, I wish there was more of the former, but definitely a lot of the latter. It's what it is, from my understanding, just kind of what it became. And I'm ignorant. I'm not a member. My dad was, and a lot of the people on my mom's side was. So my limited surface understanding is it's kind of an esoteric look at kind of the Temple of Solomon and the sort of the idealized, idealistic order that seemed to be instructed directly by God, the great architect from a Masonic point of view, telling exactly how everything should be built and what everybody should be doing. And so they do their best to kind of embody that they're all like priests in an old school sense, but in a post-Jesus sense, but more recently they're opening to other faiths and that kind of thing. I don't think there's been a ton. I think if anybody was doing Tantra in a Masonic temple, it was against the wishes of the other brethren.
I gotta tell you, to burst your bubble a little bit, and to also add my own story and Ed, you can edit this out as much as you want.
Oh no, it's fine.
But I remember you were there at my grandmother's requiem. So I think about when I think about the Freemasons, I think about my grandmother, my grandfather. So my grandfather was like beyond Mason. He lived in southern Ohio, like a very rural area, and he was into all of it. Like he really believed in all of it. And I didn't understand until later, like how much he really like that was his faith. Like he was more of a Freemason than he was. Like they didn't go to church. My grandfather and grandmother didn't go to church because they believed they had seen the churches around like where their area was. And they're like, yeah, not so much. But my grandmother was Eastern Star, and my grandfather was like the 32nd degree Mason, Shriner, did all sorts of things. Like he really helped people. And he left behind books and things that I know he wanted me to read, and I know he wanted his son to have been a Mason, been all of that, and he decided not to. And my grandma died, and she was everything to me. She was the world to me. And I asked my order that Ed and I were in to do a requiem for her, and they did. And it was funny. There was a woman who was the premonstrator of our order, which means she was the head of teaching for our order. And she said her perspective was that we shouldn't do requiems for people who aren't in Golden Dawn or Masonry or whatever.
Okay.
and she but my grandmother appeared during the requiem for her, and she was really happy, and she came in her fur coat. Like she appeared to people in her fur coat, and my that premonstrator asked me, she's like, she was in this fur coat, like she was like, I was trying to imagine her as this older woman, and she was like, no, 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 I don't look like that, I look like this. And she was in her fur coat, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, it was in depression times, and she worked in a factory, and she worked and worked and worked until she could afford a fur coat, and that was her
Mm.
biggest pride and joy, that she could buy a fur coat for herself. And so it was very real. Like the image that she got was very real. And you know, the masonry thing, I think it's just, there's so much to it, and it's really all encompassing. And um
It must be vast, it must be vast because do you feel that they are collective knowledge of all the cultures and all different rituals
no,
of different.
No,
no,
I think the Jesuits tried for that, but that with a Christian, thing at the center, of course. The Golden Dawn,
Okay.
unfortunately, from what I understand, now there's a few different manifestations of Golden Dawn, and there's people that are really pulling away from the Christian-centered thing. We happen to come from one that was embracing and even emphasizing the Christian-centered thing. Um, so, I mean, there's a lot of different evolutions happening.
Okay.
It seems like anybody, if someone's like, well, I like the Rosicrucian thing and I like the Egyptian thing, but I don't like the Christian thing. It's like, okay, Amorc, okay, well, or whatever, I mean, maybe they have a Christian thing. I don't know. But I mean, it seems like there's more and more like custom made paths for people. I don't know if that's
Okay.
positive or not.
yeah, I think that like, it's not, people think that, oh, there's this Masonic conspiracy or whatever, and it really isn't
If
true. Like,
only.
exactly. Like, I
If the
wish.
Masons were in charge, I think we'd probably be a lot better off.
Yeah, and I remember. So there's this guy, like, and I'm not gonna say his name, but he knows who he is, and he's in Austin, and I love my brothers and sisters in Austin, love them so much. But like
Episode 9.
there was this thing that it's like, oh well, there's this conspiracy, and it's got to be through the Golden Dawn, or it's got to be through, the Freemasons or whatever, and it's really not. Like the humans who are down here, who are in the ranks, like we like, look, we're just trying to find our way, we're trying to find like how to just make our lives better, and help other people along the way. And there's no like mass conspiracy that we know of. If there were, then I would try to, get underneath it and make sure that me and my peeps were okay.
Well, it's
But
being
that's
exposed. It's a conspiracy everybody knows about. It's the billionaires using all their overt now means of maintaining control, and then so it's an interesting time. I mean, it used to be people shouting on the streets. Now it's a presidential candidate saying it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's really
Yeah.
weird how it's all manifesting.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Sodi, like, what do you think about this? Like, how do you view this from not being in the U.S.?
What city are you in, by the way?
I'm in capital city, nearby the capital city in India,
Okay. So there's a
and
fort
but,
nearby,
yeah, it
an
it
old
is
fort.
uh, it is almost nearby.
Okay.
And by the way, I was studying something about masonry, and I was finding out the lodges, and suddenly I found a Grand Lodge in New Delhi, in capital city, and that is in
Hmm.
the
Oh
heart of
wow,
Delhi. I wanted
wow,
to at least meet them and see what exactly it is and what kind of hall they have prepared for their rituals and everything. And the
Yeah.
tools, I was very confused about the tools that they use. They are actually Masonic tools, which Masons use, the engineers use, and how they use it in their rituals and magical rituals. What exactly it is, that is what I wanted to study in.
Yeah,
see what
the
exactly it
sort
is.
of folklorish thing I mean, it's probably not true, but it's the word around the campfire that I got somehow. It's a story I like to perpetuate, is that when the Templars originally, there were these guys who were like, "Hey, we're going to guard the road for pilgrims to go to Jerusalem," and then they ended up taking over Jerusalem. But then 80 years later, there were some people that had actually started working with the locals and working with people in Africa and working with people in beyond over toward India, and they were like, we've really got a working system now. And then they got kicked out of Jerusalem. They had to go back to, say, Italy or wherever, and they went to the Pope at the time and said, "Hey, we've got all these traditions and things, and we kind of want to keep doing it." And the Pope said, "Okay, just kind of keep it on the down low, and everything will be fine. And we know that you have glass, stained glass making technology now, so go ahead and build the churches, and it'll be fine." And they said, "Okay, we want to use the churches in the middle of the night for our funky, weird goat rituals, and we want to use like a middle part so we can bury a guy in there. And there's some really funky stuff we're doing now." And they were like, "Okay, well, that's fine. You can use it at night, and the priest will use it during the day." And then one day, the French king owed too much money to the Templars, and so on and so forth. His cousin was Pope at the time, so he had them all declared devil worshippers, and there, 1307, the famous Black Friday. So
Yeah.
then some of them hid out in Scotland, and then eventually became the Masons.
Okay.
And so they used to build churches. The tradition goes that they know how to lay the bricks real good. They know how to build those really awesome medieval Gothic, interesting looking cathedrals all throughout Europe. And they used
Okay.
to. That was what the mystical tradition was based on. And now they're Freemasons, and they're doing their own thing, and they're different
Okay.
now. They're businessmen, and they're
Well,
just.
but of course, the
I don't
idea
know
of
if it works.
Freemasons was that no one could do that work themselves, and they were really clever about like saying, okay, how do we make ourselves indispensable and such that we can travel the country? And
Secrets.
that's what they did, and that was
Yeah.
brilliant of them because like everyone wanted to build big cathedrals and big big architectural things that
It was the movies of the time. I mean, stained glass.
yeah.
I mean, the sun through stained glass was as interesting as it got back then. I mean, through with incense. Are you kidding? That's like a psychedelic trip. And then some guy booming voice telling you you're going to hell. Oh, that's where it goes wrong, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
Was
in
that the question? Did we answer the question?
yeah,
Masons. Yeah, no, they're interesting. I think it'd be a cool thing to
in
check.
the same way, as the word suggests, I'm the kind of wizardry that I study and I do is that basically yoga practices combined with tantra and witchcraft and voodoo part, because I use a lot of Bible psalms in my voodoo practice, and I use the way the witchcraft works, the craft of a witch. So, as the word suggests, I was studying the ancient folklore. It was written there that, as the word suggests, witchcraft is actually the craft of a witch, the kind of artistry or something that somebody is making pottery or somebody is doing their another kind of craft, and they put their intentions and their chants and their rituals and their magic into that craft, and that craft itself becomes magic, a very
Hmm.
potent and living magic.
Here's my thought, and this is just my thought. You can totally refute that, and it would be fine with me and whatever. But like, I think that when you get into things like sexuality and jiggery, I can't
Say
say
what?
jiggery pokery and whatever. But like, you know, like if you're going there with your students, it's sort of like, look, you should tell them at the time that they join your school, look, like at some point I'm gonna fuck you, or you're gonna fuck me, and like that's gonna happen, or like no, that's never gonna happen. Like don't worry about it. Like don't
Yeah, be
worry about
upfront
your
about it.
sexuality.
Yeah.
Like whatever you're gonna be, like be upfront about like whatever you're gonna do. Like this is gonna be part of the curriculum, and it's gonna like it. This is gonna take you to this place, I think it's great. Like, whatever you're gonna do, but like, people need to like, am I gonna fuck you? Are you gonna fuck me? Like, that's when you get into tantra. Like, that's really important.
Right. That's how it's expressed mostly here in California and in Arizona. But I mean, the way that my dad taught me Tantra when I was 5 certainly didn't involve any fucking between us.
Yay!
Well, there actually, I want to tell you, there are actually two types of tantra, basic
Oh my god!
tantras.
Ah, sorry, sorry. Died a little bit over here.
Hey, we talked about the perineum, but that's as sexual as it got. There's a
That's
muscle
a
between the
taint,
anus and the
honey. We
balls.
talked about that
He
as a
didn't
taint.
touch it. He just made reference when you're sitting on a bicycle. That's the part that's pressed down on the bicycle seat. So, like, you lift up on that to get taller on the bicycle, and you do that while you're meditating or while you're in a yoga pose, and it helps. And that's the big dirty secret that's been being passed down from dirty old man to dirty old man for centuries.
It taint the
Yep.
front and it taint the back. It's just the taint.
There are two parts in this tantra, the ancient one. In one book, Shiva is the master, and his wife Parvati or Durga is the student. That tantra is related to occult manipulation of forces and higher magic, of evoking the powers and evoking your different archetype abilities, like creating different demons out of yourself and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Creating yourself as a destruction god or making yourself as a creative person, creative god, something like that. That was the tantra of Shiva. And there's another book in which goddess Parvati, that means his wife, is a master and Shiva is her student. That book is a sex tantra. Actually, Parvati, the goddess, is teaching him sex tantra. That is actually sex tantra, and it is quite vast. And it can be done alone as well, and with your wife or with your girlfriend. It can be done like that.
So Tantra 1 and Tantra 2.
Yeah. And mostly when I used to talk with the females on phone, especially the American girls, some of the witches I used to talk to, and to clear some doubts. Whenever I used to talk in the groups related to Tantra, then suddenly the women's, they used to rebuke me at some point.
Their anus would snap shut, is what we say. Yeah.
One day, one girl, she told me that whenever you're talking to American girl, she herself was an American, and she told me that, are you familiar with what kind of tantra people are practicing over here? I said that I am familiar, I believe. So she said,
$1,500 for a weekend of clitoral stimulation. Yeah, of course. Everybody knows that.
she said,
Oh my
she said
god,
that I
fifteen
don't
hundred
think.
dollars? Where do we get that job?
She said that I don't think that you're familiar with the kind of tantra that we're practicing. So I told her that I asked her that please let me know if I have any doubts regarding the same. And she said that if you're talking to any American girl, please beware. They are all practicing sex tantra. And if you are trying to talk to American girl regarding tantra, then you are actually flirting with her. So, so it's
Yeah,
all,
that's how it comes across. But it means web, right? It's
yeah,
the web, that the interconnectedness of all life that you can see when you're on mushrooms. It's boring to have sex on mushrooms.
yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, I know.
There's so much more interesting things. I mean, unless you're really horny, obviously. But I mean, like a lot of the times, just the color of the sunset is far more interesting. And that's Tantra. It's all part of the web.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd rather look at the sunset on mushrooms than like be boinking.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my teacher Gordon. He was teaching me zazen, but he had a bit of background in this sort of thing, and he was trying. I was a kid, so I was 18. I was hung up on a girl, and he was watering his plants, and he was saying, "Don't you smell it? All these plants are having an orgasm right in front of your face, and it's going on inside your body. And there's so much more to this energy than just in your fucking crotch, Edward." And I'm like, oh. Just trying to get me to.
Yeah, the thing I keep remembering is like there was a. Do you guys ever remember the Madonna movie Truth or Dare, where she's like, all trying to be all sexual and like doing her concert thing?
I have Medusa Dare to be Truthful memorized, but alas, I haven't yet seen the original.
That's the one. But like Medusa Dare to be Truthful is like the true version of Madonna Dare to be Truth or Dare.
Yeah.
Which is hysterical, where she's like, where it's also so shallow, and it's sort of like, oh, don't need to pay me, this boink's on me. So, that's what most Tantra kind of is in America. And really, it's much more than that.
Well, yeah, because our sense of sexuality is retarded. I mean, I don't mean to use the R word. It's slowed. It is.
Yeah. It's boring.
Yeah, and I mean, it's on the billboards. The Victoria's Secret. It's just used to sell things. They choose.
Boring.
They choose the a certain type, and then they Photoshop her, and then everybody walks around depressed that they don't look like something that's a cartoon anyway.
But no, what I love about it, I would love to hear your perspective on this, Mr. Sodhi, because honestly, like the idea of sexuality, I learned this from my very first teacher in the Golden Dawn, who was Sor RD, and I'm not going to mention her name, but I love her.
Everybody knows Sor RD.
Love her. Anyway, what she told me is that like what she taught me when I finally got there was that you're sexual because you're a human being. It doesn't matter what you look like or what your form is or whatever. You're sexual because of who you are, and that's a function of the universe. And that energy just exists, and it's all about channeling that. It doesn't matter, like, it doesn't mean, being a billboard on, Central Park, like that doesn't matter to it's irrelevant. It's all about like just being who you are.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There was a master in India. Later, he went to America, and he was exiled from all the countries. Master Osho, Master Acharya
Rajneeshpuram, the city up in Oregon.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Corrections Department.
The correct name of the city is Rajneeshpuram, which was not in my history books. Flint Ridge. My knowledge of that part of history comes from episode 184 of the podcast 99% Invisible.
He translated a lot of Sikh books, our books as well, and a lot of Tantra as well, Bhairav Tantra and different kind of Tantra as well. He taught depth of meditations which are taught in Tantra, every kind of Tantra. And the only difference is that in the occult societies, in Thelema, I believe, and in voodoo kind of magic, our sexual energy can be used to manifest something constructive or destructive as well. Sigils can be charged, or you can send the energy. But in India, in Tantra, people, the gods, have made it in such a way, and it's written in such a way that it's only used for higher magic. It's better to use it only for higher magic, like evoking your Kundalini Shakti, and cleansing all your chakras, and increasing your you can say that your physical sexual power, and also, you can say that after you do the tantric sex, basically your mental level and your sexuality becomes like a silent sea, not a sea with lot of waves. It becomes like a silent sea after tantric sex. So it's more like this. And you have used your energy to kind of heal your chakras, and the energy while sex is moving from you to your lady, from lady to you, from you again to the lady, from lady again to you. So it's forming a kind of circle, and it's moving, and it's cleaning both of your chakras. And once you're done, you can continue for a long time. And once you're done, and once you're into orgasm, that orgasm would be longer, and it would calm us down, and the mind would be very much stable. Yeah, sexual feelings are still going to come, but comparatively, mind would be very, very calm. It would be very, very calmer. That
Mm.
was what exactly tantric sex was, and what Indian teachings teaches, that it's better not to use sexual energy to do harmful magic for others. You can use any other energy of yours, but not the sexual energy, because you're actually using directly your kundalini power, your
Mm.
serpentile power. Sexual energy is our kundalini power, and we are directly using our kundalini power for a dark purpose, and you are
Mm.
darkening your sexual energy.
What other
Maybe,
power can be drawn from? I mean, in that example, like if you were going to do something dark, you don't want to use your Kundalini energy. So I imagine using my left hand, doing it kind of out of my own vision of range of vision, calling on a demon to do my bidding for
yeah,
me.
maybe nature forces, nature spirits, or you can say, your ancestors, or anything
Oh,
else for the help. Your chants can be used, your words can be used, the visualizations can be used, but not directly the sexual energy.
I'll probably just avoid it altogether. I do my best to. Sometimes I'll get cut off in traffic and I'll imagine the car blowing up, or something, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, no wonder I haven't been given my superpowers that are inherent within my inner godness, if I'm going to be using them like that, just so easily provoked."
Yeah.
Anything that you want to mention before we close up the interview?
Yeah, just that I would like to mention that in my work, in my study, I would favor one thing, that doesn't matter how much deep study we do, whatever ritual we do. It was written in our book, and the masters, Sikh masters, have also written. The meaning is very deep. They're saying that prayers are not going to help, chants are not going to help, all the rituals are not going to give you enlightenment. All the books, all the masters, and everything else you can read, and you can read for lifetimes. It's not going to give us enlightenment, but only your truth, only your true connection with the supreme energy inside yourself. If that connection is true, that is going to work. That means he's not condemning the prayer, he's not condemning the chants, he's not condemning the meditation or the masters. He's saying in all the rituals, in all you know chants, in anything that you're doing, in anything that we're doing, the basic thing which should be there in order to make it effective is the depth. And in the meditation, the samadhi should be there. Once the samadhi, the trance state is there, the altered consciousness in which we we see the higher. parts inside us. We see the higher chakras. Once that thing is done in any ritual, in any meditation, in any chant, or in any prayer, once that is achieved, everything is fruitful. Until our mind is wavering here and there in the worldly things, and we are doing some ritual, and our mind is not completely focused. The thing is very simple that he's trying to explain, that mind should be aware. It's like what you call mindfulness.
Yeah.
He's just trying to explain. He's just trying to explain that whatever we are doing, it should be with such close awareness that we are here now, in the present moment. During the ritual, everything that we are doing, it's complete consciousness and it's complete meditation. It's totally meditation. It's like that we have forgotten the ritual. We are doing the ritual, but still we have forgotten the ritual, and we are just into the meditation. Body is doing the ritual, but we are doing just meditation. Until and unless this thing is achieved, nothing would be fruitful. And once this thing is achieved, for a meditator, once a person starts meditating and once a person starts feeling the trance state, it would be easy. I feel you would be able to relate with that, because you were doing a lot of rituals and stuff like that, and chakra meditation as well. So
Yeah,
trance
definitely.
state is a thing that we feel. Even in the trance state, sometimes a lot of thoughts come, but if we are aware, the master is only trying to explain that your mind should be just aware, and it should be in the present moment. If you are fully here now, while any ritual, any prayer, everything would be fruitful, and everything would be like meditation. The life would be like meditation. So this is what I want to say, and this is what I want to experience myself as well in future.
I feel like there's a connection between that idea and the quote that Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and the rest will be given unto you."
Exactly, exactly, exactly. It's beautiful. That is why many things in Bible, many things in Torah as well, Book of Moses, they're very. I feel the Bible is extremely magical book. It's extremely
Yeah.
magical book, and many things which may seem unscientific are actually not in the real world, but actually they are deep level of meditation that we actually feel during our meditation. That is what I feel. It's beautiful book, and Psalms and everything, they actually work. I've
Do you
seen
have a
it work.
book recommendation for someone who might be interested in the Sikh religion and then also Tantra?
I feel there are a lot of books. It, our gurus, our masters have jotted down very beautiful written. There are a lot of written uh, testaments of different saints. At least 36 saints are written in our book of all the communities. They have not suppressed any community. Our masters have taken testaments of all the great masters, all the enlightened ascended masters. But the thing is that uh, the ancient, they have not just written whatever is written in our holy book. Their writings were far more than this. They have written a lot of Tantra as well, but Sikh people do not know about that. They would condemn that because the masters have wandered around this world. Guru Nanak Dev, there was a person, there was a saint called Guru Nanak Dev. He has went to 4 different parts of the world in his journey. He has went to China, he has went to Russia, he has went to southern part of India, he has went to Afghanistan as well. So he was very popular in different places. And it's not just that he has written Guru Granth Sahib, our holy book. He has written a lot of texts, and he has given a lot of books, a lot of secret books to many different kings of different places who were his disciples. And you can read holy book of Sikhs, and you can read. It's called Guru Granth Sahib. You can type. I will send
Okay.
you the name.
Oh,
You
thank
can
you.
read Guru Granth Sahib in English. You can read Bhagavad Gita in English. You can read there. If you search different types of Gita, Gita is actually conversation between master and a disciple. There are 5, 6 type of Gitas. One is Bhagavad Gita. It is a conversation between Prince Arjun and Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna is giving knowledge and wisdom to Arjun. The second Gita is Ashtavakra Gita. There is a one saint called Ashtavakra. He is giving wisdom to a king called Raja Janak, King Janak. That is Ashtavakra Gita. The third one is Guru Gita. In that one Guru, his name was Guru Dattatreya. He is giving wisdom to one of his disciples. And just like that, there is Shiv Gita. In that, Lord Shiva is giving teachings to Lady Parvati. So these are the conversations between masters and the disciple. Lot of questions, and you would see that in the same way, whatever feeling we feel in this world, in this lifetime, every situation and everything that you would get in Bible, you will also always get that in Bible. All kind of situations, all kind of depressions and tensions and everything, misunderstandings happening in our life, everything we feel in our life, you will get that the answers in Bible. In the same way, all the events, major or minor, just like tarot cards, major arcana and minor arcana, major events of life, phases of life, and minor events happening in our life, all the details, all are mental, the kind of torture sometimes we feel, and the levels of energy we feel inside our mind. All the things are written inside Bhagavad Gita. You'll find each and everything in Bhagavad Gita. You would find kind of meditations in Bhagavad Gita. You'd find a lot of psychology in Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita would be one of the best readings that best Indian books that you can read, and our Sikh book, which is uh, Guru Granth Sahib. And apart from that, if you like poetry, then you can read Hazrat Rumi. He is a Sufi. He was a
Mm.
Sufi mystic, and
Yeah, I love him.
Rumi is very good. I mean, his poetry is in coded language, and actually he's explaining the kind of meditation he's doing and the feelings and experiences that he's getting in his meditation, his
Mm.
encounters with God or his encounters with the universe. You know,
Hafiz is another one I like from Persia.
Hafiz is very good.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you so much for being our guest tonight on the Esoterinerd podcast.
Thank you very much, Edward. It was nice talking to you and Joe as well. Bye
Absolutely.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Amandeep Sodhi, for being our guest tonight. Thank you to Joe Shantz for being my co-host. Thank you to Jean-Michel Jarre for providing oxygen for the background in Transformations and Footnotes. Thank you to the Greek Byzantine choir Makris for that Easter liturgy. And thank you to Brian Dahl, you could hear briefly in the background during that same segment. Thank you to Jean-Michel, or rather John Michael Talbot, for providing one body and a great body of music for us to listen to when we're in weird moods. Thank you to Julie Brown for Vague/Party in My Pants. Thank you, as always, to Susumu Ueda, as well as his father and the other monks at the Jofukuin Temple on Mount Koyasan for providing the music we're hearing right now. And to identical twins Camille and Kennerly for providing the harp intro and outro to the interviews. Most importantly, thank you to you, the Esoterinerd, listening to this podcast. We will be closing with some of the music of Amandeep Sodhi. This is Shri Durga Chalisa by Sifat and Amandeep Sodhi.
इति श्री दुर्गा चालीसा आरंभम नमो नमो दुर्गे सुखकर्णी नमो नमो दुर्गे सुखकर्णी नमो नमो अम्बे दुख हरिणी नमो नमो दुर्गे सुख करणी नमो नमो अम्बे दुख हरिणी निराकार है ज्योति तुम्हारे तिहूं लोक फैले उजियारे शशि लिलाट मुख महाविशाला नेत्र लाल भ्रिकुटी विकराला रूप मातु को अधिक सुहावे दर्श करत जन अति सुख पावे तुम संसार शक्ति लेकीना पालन हेतु अन्न धन दीना अन्नपूर्णा हुई जगपाला तुम ही आदि सुंदरी बाला प्रलय काल सब नाशन हारे तुम गौरी शिव शंकर प्यारे 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 शिव योगी तुम रे गुण गावे ब्रह्मा विष्णु तुम्हें नित ध्यावे रूप सरस्वती को तुम धारा दे सुबुद्धि ऋषि मुनिन उभारा धरियो रूप नरसिंह को अम्बा प्रगट भई फाड़ कर खंबा रक्षा करे प्रहलाद बचायो हिरणाकुश को स्वर्ग पठायो लक्ष्मी रूप धरा जग माही श्री नारायण अंग समाही श्री नारायण अंग समाही श्री नारायण अंग समाही श्री नारायण अंग समाही क्षीर सिंधु में करत विलासा दया सिंधु दे जय मन आसा हिंग लाज में तुम ही भवानी महिमा अमित ना जात बखानी मातंगी अरुधुमावती माता, मातंगी अरुधुमावती माता, भुवनेश्वरी बगला सुखदाता, श्री भैरव तारा जगतारिणी, छिन्न भाल भव दुख निवारिणी, के हरि वाहन सोहे भवानी, के हरि वाहन सोह भवानी, लांगुर वीर चलत अगवानी, कर में खप्पर खड्ग विराजे, जाको देख काल डर भाजे, जाको देख काल डर भाजे, जाको देख काल डर भाजे, सोहे अस्त्र और त्रिशूला, जाते उठत शत्रु ही शूला, नगर कोटि में तुम ही विराजत, तिहु लोक में डंका बाजत, तिहु लोक में डंका बाजत, शुंभ निशुंभ दानव तुम मारे, रक्त बीज शंखन संहारे, महिषासुर नृप अति अभिमानी, जेहि अधभार मही अकुलानी, रूप कराल कालिका धारा, सेन सहित तुम तिहि संहारा, परिगाढ़ संतन पर जब जब, भई सहाय मातु तुम तब तब, अमरपुरी अरुबासव लोका, तब महिमा सब रहे अशोका, ज्वाला में है ज्योति तुम्हारी, तुम्हें सदा पूजे नर नारी, प्रेम भक्ति से जो यश गावे, दुख दारिद्र निकट नहीं आवे, ध्यावे तुम्हें जो नर मन लाई, जन्म मरण ताको छुट जाई, जोगी सुरमुनि कहत पुकारी, योग न हो बिन शक्ति तुम्हारी, शंकर आचार्य तप कीनो, काम अरु क्रोध चीति सब लीनो, निश दिन ध्यान धरो शंकर को, काहु काल नहीं सुमिरो तुमको, शक्ति रूप को मर्म न पायो, शक्ति गई तब मन पछतायो, शरणागत हुई कीर्ति बखानी, जय 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 जगदम्ब भवानी, भई प्रसन्न आदि जगदम्बा, दई शक्ति नहीं कीन विलंबा, मोको मात कष्ट अति घेरो, तुम बिन कौन हरे दुख मेरो, आशा तृष्णा निपट सतावे, मोह मदादिक सब विनशावे, शत्रुनाश के जय महारानी, सुमिरो इच्छित तुम्हें भवानी, करो कृपाल हे मात दयाला, रिद्धि सिद्धि दे कर हो निहाला, जब लागे जियो दया फल पाऊं। तुम्हारो यश मैं सदा सुनाऊं। दुर्गा चालीसा जो कोई गावे, सब सुख भोग परम पद पावे। देवी दास चरण निज जानी, करहु कृपा जगदम्ब भवानी। करहु कृपा जगदम्ब भवानी। इति श्री दुर्गा चालीसा संपूर्णम्।